Hanami! Welcome back to Life and Other Soccer Skills. Right now, the unexpected has happened. It is still officially summer as I'm starting this video. I say that like it's going to be autumn by the time I'm done. It is possible. It may actually more just be like autumn by the time you watch it. I don't know, it depends on my scheduling. But I hit a point, and it may be because I was sort of like in withdrawal or was in need of a new project or got inspired or a mixture of all of those things. I can't quite tell, but I'm ready for a new sewing project. So yeah, I'd seen on the Instablam a bit of a trend towards like faux jumpsuits, and I got very excited about this because I own one jumpsuit, and despite the fact that it's not supposed to shrink in the wash, and I washed it on cool and all of those things you're supposed to do, it did shrink slightly, which for me is not great because I have very long legs and a very short body. So it was a miracle that I was ever able to find a jumpsuit that fitted me anyway, and then I lost some length on the legs after washing it. I'm like, meh. So anyway, yes, like this trend that I've seen is more aligned to what's going on with fashion these days anyway, which obviously I very rarely pay any attention to and don't follow in any way because I'm not fashionable. But with the 90s being back, these faux jumpsuits have been like high-waisted trousers with a crop top. So you're not necessarily showing any skin, but if you lifted your arms up, you might. So it's basically a top and trousers designed to look like a jumpsuit, but actually they're two separates. And I was like, do you know what? It's a really bloody good idea. And since I have attempted to make some leggings, and I've got quite proficient at doing two-piece t-shirts, and you know, that flouncy one I made in the style of Snow White, maybe I could attempt this. But of course, having never made actual trousers, I was like, what fabric do I get? Because ideally, I don't want to make wide leg trousers. I'm not a massive fan of them. I will if I have to, but ideally I'd like to make some sort of like cigarette style trousers and then have a top that's like two-piece but maybe with a v-neck. And then I was thinking the way I would make it look like it's a jumpsuit was to sort of have it tie off at the bottom, so it sort of looks like you've tied the jumpsuit in the middle. So I think the top will be quite straightforward. But yeah, with the trousers I was like, how do I find a fabric that works for both top and bottoms? And then how do I find a fabric that works for bottoms being quite fitted, but that also has a pattern that I like? Because the minute you start getting into trouser fabric suddenly becomes boring. So I've gone for a cotton poplin. I am, in a move very unlike me, going to do a mock-up in just some, you know, old crappy fabric I have hanging around, just so I can figure out the trouser situation. Because I have two concerns. One, if I make the trousers too tight, I'm not going to be able to bend over without them ripping. And two, that because I'm not planning to line any of this, the trousers might be see-through if I am able to bend over. So I have to kind of do a little bit of a test and figure that out. Look at this. Isn't this amazing? Oh, she says, flopping it down. It's lovely. You can't see it. There you go, look. Oh, hold! I'm so excited about this. It's multicoloured flip-flops. Multicoloured flip-flops. So next steps, I'm going to use sort of patterns that I've made already and then adapt them. So for the top, I'm going to use my bog standard t-shirt pattern for that first original t-shirt I made. And then I will adapt that by creating the v-neck and the ties on the bottom. And then for the trousers, I sort of need to do a bit of cut and shunt. Too very careful how I said that. So partly I will look at the leggings pattern that I made to try and just, I guess, check dimensions. But I'm also going to draw around my day-to-day work trousers, and then just kind of compare those two things and adjust as needed. Because also, with the leggings, those were also like simple leggings approach, which was two pieces, so like a front piece and a back piece. Whereas with, I've investigated all my trousers by looking at them closely. you're more going for 4 pieces, so front and back per leg, and then you sort of sew it all together. So that's why I need to draw around. But yeah, I did also kind of want to cross compare size wise, obviously bearing in mind that the leggings had elasticatedness within them. So yeah, but this is why we're doing a mock-up first, so I can just kind of try that out to see if I've, for example, left enough space for my bum. Oh, all these things you have to think about. Anyway, join me as I attempt to figure out the pattern situation. So, here's what I've done so far, which is I have made a pattern for the trousers, which I can't remember if I said in the intro, I think I did, needs to be 4 pieces total, plus potentially a waistband. I haven't quite figured out if I'm going to do that as a separate bit or do a fold over. We'll see what it looks like when I do a try on. So yeah, so in terms of the pattern pieces, I've made a front leg and a back leg, roughly drawing around a pair of trousers that I currently own, but obviously it's a bit difficult to judge how much bigger the back leg part of that is when it's flat. So I've sort of made a rough guesstimate based on, I do again have a sort of a base pattern and some instructions, but I'm more using the instructions to understand how to put this together. And I just looked, I literally eyeballed the shape of the back leg versus the front leg to try and sort of gauge how to draw that out. So we're gonna see how it goes. That's why we're doing the mock-up first. So yes, so I made that pattern. I also made the pattern for the front of the top. So I basically used the base pattern for the front of my original t-shirt pattern, and then created a v-neck instead of a round neck, and then added on what I'm currently going to refer to as the dangly bits. It's ultimately going to be a bottom tie-up. So I've now pinned up what is the... I don't know why I'm finding this so hard to say. Now pinned up the front leg with a back leg. This is supposed to be right sides together, but obviously you can't tell with my crappy white fabric. And I've just pinned up the inner leg from sort of the crotch downwards. That is instruction 1. So we're going to sew that up, then do the same on the other leg, and then I'll figure out what the next bit is. But I won't necessarily take you through all of these stages because this is just the mock-up and that's a little bit more dull than the actual thing. So yeah, I'm just going to like zhuzh this together and then I'll report back. So here's an interesting quandary. The fabric I've got left here is enough to do the front and the back of the top as planned, but it's got these dangly bits on it to be the ties at the bottom. Now, the way you can see the fabric laid is actually upside down. So down here is where I cut the trouser pieces out. So that was from the top of the fabric here down that way. But if I want to do the top with the dangly bits, I'm going to have to actually utilise the dangly bits that already exist here rather than exactly following the pattern, because otherwise I haven't got enough space for dangly bits. Now I was like, that means that the trouser pieces will be going top to bottom, but the top piece will then be going bottom to top. Surely that won't work. However, here is a trouser piece. I don't know if you can see quite how well that camouflages from here. Let's put the other one down as well. I was kind of like, oh, this is going to be obvious and awkward, but it completely blends. So even though around here the flip-flops suddenly are upside down, it completely blends anyway. So you're not going to be able to see from a distance. Miraculously, we've saved it. So I think this is going to have to be how we do it. I don't like cutting out from the middle of the fabric, but annoyingly, like, this bit and this bit are right on the sides. So at least we've got this nice section down the middle. I can just cut that in half. So it's not quite where I wanted it, but since it's supposed to be decorative anyway, I don't think that's going to matter. So we'll see how it looks. And if it looks stupid, we've at least got then like loads of fabric up here and up here, where we could do then just a belt that maybe goes sort of along the waist. But we'll see. I'm just pleased that my camouflage trick is going to work and that we can attempt to do the dangly bits. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Okay, so here we are. I decided we're going to start with the trousers because that's the most complicated bit and the most, I guess, unknown bit. So I have gone around and zigzagged the edges of all four trouser pieces, so both fronts, both backs. And then what I've just done is pin up the inside seam crotch downwards with one front, one back, which at the moment I have labelled with masking tape because I discovered when I did my mock-up that I couldn't tell the difference between front and back. We're now going to sew down that edge, and then we'll do the same thing for the other leg, and then we attach them all together. Like, it sounds disturbingly simple, but and I actually get yes, it is disturbingly simple, but only if you've got the measurements right and you don't have to adjust shit. So haha. Obviously, as the mock-up was actually a good fit but with a bit more bum room needed, what I actually did when I cut out the trouser pieces was allow an additional sort of 1 to 1.5, well actually maybe like 1.5 to 2 centimetres. Let's just say I wasn't that accurate, that's the classic me. All the way round, because I actually thought, do you know what, I'd rather have more material all the way round and then, you know, take it in if I need to, rather than, yeah, risk it not being quite big enough again, because this is all we've got, basically. It's either this or we give up on the plan. So yeah, let's crack on with the first round of sewing and we'll see how it goes. I feel like that's the motto of today's mission. See how it goes. Just see how it goes, yo. So now we're on to the outside leg, which again I've just attached to each other, but this time all the way up. Whee. Yeah, so we're just going to sew it and then we have one official leg. Next up, it's crotch time. So I've basically now got 2 legs. This is obviously 1, not 2, but there are 2 of these, and we now have to take, if I just whopper this, oh, hopefully you can see that, take these bits and sew them to the corresponding these bits on the other leg, and then we are fully crotched. But this is ultimately also where it could all go wrong, so cross your fingers, don't hold your breath. Okay, now I actually have 2 legs, and we basically put one the right side out. La, 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 la. Oh, aren't they amazing? I love these. And then the one that's the right side out goes into the other leg, so that we've got right sides together for this. All being well. Checking my front and back stickers are stuck before it's too late. Yeah, front, back. Okay, great. Great. Alrighty, so that is the crotch officially sewn. Trying not to take off my back and front labels. So let's hoik it out and see where we're at. Clown trousers. That's the only thing, when you look at it like this, you're like, I've just made clown trousers. They're not going to look like clown trousers when they're on, I hope. They're going to look amazing, but yeah. Right, which is front and which is back then? Come on, labels. That's his back. That's his back. Great. Clown trousers. Always good to like check out the seams from the outside. Probably needs a little a little press as well. Hopefully not a bunchy crotch, that's the worst. Oh, there's still a pin in there apparently. How did I miss that? See, and this is why we check, people. Nobody wants a pin in their crotch. There we go. Oh, must have sewn over that. Either that or I missed a bit. No, I definitely sewed over it. Okay. Great. So we're going to do a little try on and just see how things are landing. And then we'll make any adjustments needed. If there are no adjustments needed, then I will press and we'll figure out the waistband stitch. So, big lols, I did actually make clown trousers. So obviously different fabric to test fabric. And I did add, I only added like 2 centimeters max to each part. But that means I've added 8 centimeters overall, which, you know, I thought would be appropriate for adding bigger bum space, but yeah, you could fit someone else in here, definitely. The upside is, at least they're not too tight. Like, that was my big concern. The issue now is going to be, there's quite a lot of extra fabric here. So yeah, we ultimately need to take in, like, you know, pretty much 8 centimeters by the look of it. Oh, lol. Otherwise, they're beautiful. I love them. This is going to be a big fix job. I don't know where to go next with this, to be honest, or where to start with fixing these measurements. So yeah. I'll see you when it's the next day and I've decided. So just to bring you up to speed, I initially just pinned round, taking in sort of like an inch all the way around off, and then tried the trousers back on, and that was still too baggy. But from that kind of positioning, I could adjust the pins closer to my leg. It was a painful process, very literally. I stuck pins into myself several times. But once I'd done that, I then tacked up where the pins were so that I could, you know, keep trying stuff on without stabbing the crap out of myself. So we're sort of there or thereabouts. I might need to make a few additional crotch-related tweaks. Because what I had done was, once I'd put the tacking in, I unpicked the crotch bit, which was what attached the two front and back sections to each other, just so that I didn't have to like do the really awkward resewing of the crotch and all of that. And I obviously didn't want to cut off any excess fabric until I was sure that I wasn't going to cut off too much. So yeah, I may need to kind of tweak that a little bit. Again, I'm a bit nervous to do it right now. So what I thought I would do was crack on with the top, because A, this should be fairly straightforward, and B, I almost need to see the two pieces together to kind of decide whether actually you need a little bit of extra space in the trousers to make it work with the top, or whether actually I can just sort of try and tighten that up a wee bit. So yes, that's where we are. Once I finally get to the final trouser size, we'll need to do the waistband and the, I always want to call them cuffs, hems, the hems of the trousers. Yeah, so, but in the meantime, I've pinned my front and back of my top together, so we're going to now sew that. I've also just zigzagged around the edges to stop any fraying. Now you can't quite see it here, let me pull it up. What I've also done is where we had the dangly bits, I was still like umming and ahhing as to how to make the dangly bits work. But what I actually did, because I'd left them quite fat, if you remember, we sort of had that one bit that I cut into two. I actually then sort of almost cut it into quarters. I sort of snipped into the top of that and folded it in half, and then just ironed under the edges so that that would have a straight edge. Kind of like, if you've been hanging around for a long time, kind of like when we did the strap for the water bottle holder. Same sort of principle. So that way, all I've got to do on the bottom, aside from obviously sew this together, is then just hem up the bits that go either side, and that should hopefully look then quite neat. So, with the lights in the right place, you can sort of see how this looks. I'm pretty happy with that. If I just balancing, totally natural sitting position. So I'm pretty happy with how this has come out. I've just now got to do the finishing, so hem under the sleeves and the bottom and the neckline, and then we are done with the top. It's funny how this is just so much quicker and easier than trousers. I think I've got a way to go before I fully nail the trouser stitch, but this has been a grand old experiment. I've enjoyed it. So yes, join me as I hem stuff. Okay, so here is where we are at. A bajillion adjustments later, we're about to start, well, proceed with the waistband. So what I'm about to do is just press down the area that I've marked out and folded over. Then we'll sew it down and then just check that that all fits, and then go from there. So yeah, so we're almost, in theory, done with the trousers. Then I need to retry it on with the top and kind of figure out if we actually need to make any adjustments on the top as well. Because yeah, at the moment it's not quite reached my vision of this is supposed to look like it's a play suit, but of course it's in two halves. It looked a little bit like I was wearing multicoloured scrubs. So, I mean, if worst comes to the worst, I will just wear them as separates, but yeah, I am still determined to try and make this concept work. I refuse to believe that you have to have a crop top on top to make this concept work, so yeah. Anyway, waistband, here we go. Okay, so now that we've, oops, now that we've sewn up the waist, I've had a little try on of the trousers, and look how much cuff I've decided to pull up. So I'm gonna press it down, then sew it, then try on, and if I'm happy with the length, then I will trim this down. But actually, yes, the reason you will have noticed I got the top on is because I was trying it on with the trousers, and actually pulling them up a little bit looks better, because obviously I purposefully made them long so that I could decide on the length once I tried them on with shoes. And yeah, when I tried them on with shoes, it kind of felt like actually they needed to maybe show a little bit of ankle. So yeah, we're going to give that a go. And pretty much once that's done, because I've decided I don't need to make any further changes with the top, having tried the two on together, that is it. Oh, finally finished, hopefully. So I just realised that I was so excited about getting everything finished that I in fact forgot to film an outro. So oops, but here we go. I am generally pleased with how things went. I think the whole clown trouser debacle was a good learning experience, but also kind of cacked my motivation a little bit. I got very tired and very fed up of making all the adjustments in the end. So the trousers definitely aren't perfect. The top and the trousers together aren't quite how I'd envisaged them, and I think that was partly because of the trouser debacle and partly because of what I'd had to do with repositioning the ties on the top. So I could have spent more time tweaking it and maybe making it a little bit more how I wanted, but I was a bit exhausted after all the trouser adjustments. So, you know, and as I say, like, they do still work as separates, and it may be that I'll actually go back into the trousers later and tweak them even more. I don't know. Now that I've made the pattern, I can actually have a crack at making more pairs of trousers and hopefully not make the same mistake again. Because this is the frustrating thing, and really annoying that I didn't film it, but actually the mock-up of the trousers was practically perfect. It was practically perfect. It was just that, because I wasn't using stretch fabric, I wanted to make a bit more space around the bum so that they wouldn't rip when I bent over. Otherwise, the sizing was great. And I then ruined it by adding like 3 bajillion centimetres to every section of what I created. So yeah, starting again from scratch and either using stretch fabric or just making a minor accommodation for bum space will be interesting, because otherwise everything went exactly as I wanted it to, and it is really straightforward. And then I could do things like experiment with pockets. I'm definitely missing there not being pockets here. And there's nothing to say I couldn't unpick it and put pockets in there. Well, that was a lot of like P-related alliteration. But again, not now. Yeah. Anyway, so that was my hilarious attempt to make a faux jumpsuit. If there are any sewists watching, have you attempted anything like this before? If you're not a sewist, please be kind. Do you like the fabric? It's flip-flops. And then my battery officially died, so I am signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!